I'm Ava Lorona, and I'm going to be asking people what decade that wanted to live in and why.
I would say the 90s because of the music and the fashion.
I'm thinking the 80s because I love the 80s rock bands. Pretty nice.
I'm thinking the 90s because I like their fashion and like when you look back at the footage that would have been like released, like oh this was recorded in the 90s, whatever. Everything just looks so like chill and like nice.
Fabulous.
If I could live in any decade, definitely would be the 80s. I am such a fan of the 80s, the music, pop culture, the country music, the outfits. I'm living for it. So that is one of my guilty pleasures of listening to 80s music, watching 80s movies. Yeah, that's where I would live.
It would be the early 2000s because of the fashion and the music.
I would live in the early 2000s because I like the way the fashion era was and everything just seems so much more easier then.
I would live in the 1800s because I think that the dresses were pretty and I like the houses.
I would live back in the old days, like 60s, 70s. Life was so much easier back then. I didn't have to worry about anything.
I want to live in the 50s because it's kind of cool. I don't know, it's just cool.
I want to live in like the 80s or 90s because I feel like it's fun.
I probably want to live in the early 2000s because I like how they dressed back then, and it's my favorite music to listen to.
No, I think I would want to be in like the 80s, so I could go see like my brother, Mr. Doy. I could see him in his prime. All the girls and stuff.
I would want to live in the 90s. I feel like that was a fun generation.
Yeah, me too, just because the basketball, I would be able to see MJ play, and the dressing was really good.
Whew. I've been teaching The Great Gatsby for far too long to not pick the 1920s. So I hope it's like they say it is in that book, that it was like a time of decadence and riches and all of that stuff. It seems like it would be a very interesting time to live. So I think I picked the 1920s.
I'd say probably right now because technology is at its peak right now.
I want to live in the 2030s so I can see the future.
I would say the 1980s because number one, best music, hair metal bands. Number two, best action movies. And number three, had the best team of all time, the 1985-86 Boston Celtics.
I would say the 80s.
The 80s, yeah.
The 80s.
Better music.
Best music. Funnest time. Lived through it, enjoyed it.
Yeah.
That would be my pick, for sure.
Keep up the school spirit and dress up every day. See you for tomorrow's Peek Out.